Well, hello, everyone. You can unmute and say hello, Terry. You don't have to stay muted. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. And if you guys want to turn your cameras on, we'd love to see your smiling faces here. And hopefully we'll have a few more inspectors popping in here. Also, we have we're having some fun. Before you guys got here, we were all laughing and giggling and talking about stuff. And then now it's all straight faced. And what's with that?
That's one of our cultural commitments, is to laugh a little every day.
There you go. We got ours in. And now we're done.
The whole.
All right.
All right, there's TJ.
Well, I'm just going to sit on the sidelines today, guys. And Leanne, if you want to introduce the time we get together here, then Sherry and the inspectors can go through the list. And if you need me for anything, I'm here. But I'm an innocent bystander.
Yeah, right. Now that is funny.
Yeah, that can all be a laugh today.
All right.
Yeah.
There's another inspector, Chad. Hi, Chad.
Where
He's
is
still
Tony?
connecting to
Hello,
audio.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Well, it's 5:03. I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. Today is our inspector chat day. Woohoo! And we have two of our inspectors on right now. We've got Rich. We're about to have Tony. We got Chad, and we got a list of stuff we're going to discuss. And you guys can listen in if you have any questions. If it's urgent or pertinent to the subject at hand, you can put it in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question. So I think that's it for me at the moment. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Sherry. You're muted,
Sherry, you're
darling.
muted.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to come on really quick before our inspectors start answering some of the questions. We, as a company, are growing left and right. So sometimes you may not be able to get a hold of us. There's a reason for it. But keep trying, because we'll always be answering the phone. Another thing I wanted to talk about was our inspectors are here to do consultations. Our inspectors are willing to do as many consultations as you need to get through your build. We prefer you do the consultations if you're not sure on something, so that you don't have to go back and redo something that may, if you just had a consultation, they would be able to tell you how to work it. Also, we have had a few complaints here in the last few months, but the complaints are on builders' workmanship. Well, when the workmanship, which we don't inspect, we inspect to the ANSI standards and the NOAA Plus standards, and that's what we inspect to. So just remember, you do have NOAA on your homes and on your websites. So take pride in your builds, and so that we don't have to have some of your buyers calling us saying, well, this didn't work and this is why isn't it working. We just want to be the inspectors for our standards and not your quality control standards. So with that being said,
wait a minute, I got a question.
Okay.
Sherry. How do you want them to do you want them to call in for the consultations or schedule those?
You will schedule those just like you do a regular inspection stage, and you would just click on other, and then write consultation, or you can click on consultation and then just tell us what stage consultation, whether it's a stage 2, whether it's a stage 3, however, whatever stage you're needing the consultation about, just make sure you let us know so that our inspectors, when they get on the line with you, they will know where to start and they will have that memory available to you instead of having to wait on it to come to them. So
Cool.
definitely just schedule it just like you would a normal inspection.
Yeah, and then Sherry, in addition to that, another good thing is there's a description box. If you can be as descriptive, reasonably descriptive as you can on what your concerns are, that helps us greatly. It just in getting in the mindset when we get that call, or when we're gonna, call you up, just to be prepared.
Okay, the first thing I wanted to talk about too was the inspectors and I have been talking, and it seems like we need to add some items to our stage 5s. Not big things, but it will benefit you as well as benefiting us. So one of the things we want to add is making sure all your outlets and switch covers are on for your final inspection. We are going to start requiring you to have power hooked up to your unit so that we can test all the GFICs, all the lights are on and working, fans, etc. Please also have your fire extinguisher and smoke detectors up, because we will be testing those as well to make sure they're operable. And this isn't for sure. I want some input from you guys. We're thinking about maybe doing the water pressure test at the stage 5. And I wanted to see how you guys felt about that. That way, you know that your pressure's holding. If you want to do 2, that's perfectly fine. But I think it might help some by doing the water pressure test in the final. But that's just my thinking. Rich, Chad, or any of the builders?
I would rather see it before wall covering's on. If there is a leak, you want to catch it, during the rough stage and not necessarily the final. It may not hurt to do maybe another air pressure check at the final to make sure that everything is good. But yeah, I would definitely, at least at the rough stage.
Yeah,
You have
mean,
to admit.
yeah, we have to have that at rough stage. That's really not negotiable as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But at final, I mean, I wouldn't say another test per se. I would say if we have availability to pressurize the system with water and run some faucets and fixtures, that would be beneficial, because then we can confirm, yes, the fixture does work, it doesn't leak, that type of thing. But then that would also require you to have drains hooked up as well, and your main drain, which in some of the arrangements that are out there, it would be impossible to do.
Well,
So
as much water as you're going to use in that, you probably don't need but a bucket underneath of the main drain.
Okay,
You're not going to run 5 gallons of water.
that's fair
Well,
enough.
if you're just testing with water and not, unsanitary things, then yeah, I don't see where that wouldn't be any different than just dumping a hose on the ground.
Okay.
14,
Any of our builders have any feedback?
15 now. Speak up or forever hold your peace. This is your opportunity.
Hello.
Literally.
I just want to kind of apologize for a second, because I actually haven't done a final yet since I've been here. As far as the final inspection, I've done some re-inspection. I guess I assumed that we were testing with water, and checking the P-traps to make sure that nothing's leaking, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So my apologies, I misunderstood that process.
Nothing wrong with giving your opinion. That's what.
So for the builders,
where Sherry's going with this, or where we're coming from with it, I guess I want to say, is we have had at times some buyers complain back to us that they've had leaky faucet or that an outlet wasn't working or so. And those are things that we don't really get a chance to check when we're doing our inspections, other than, we do a pressure test on the plumbing during the rough stage. So I think that's where Sherry's coming from on that. We were just trying to maybe cover all our bases with all of them.
Did one of the builders have a comment? I think A. Casanova.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks all. Well, we finally made it. It's kind of difficult because the differential of the hours, labor hours, but yeah. So thanks a lot for the question. Basically, we're gonna be in I will say a couple of weeks starting our first inspection. It has been very helpful. All the consultations are ready. And the question is basically we need to, in the stage where the MAP is checking, we will need to pressurize the PEX. And I just want to make sure that we need to go all the way.
We have another 4 bells for the peak.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Christina, could you mute your
Yes. Okay. Yes, I'll mute it. Sorry.
So thanks. So we will need to pressurize the system before closing the walls, correct? So the question will be how we can, without installing all the accessories, the features, how we can do that without using just a plug that will need to be cut, I think. Is that the only way of doing it? Like putting a end cap
Right.
in each pipe, pressurize, and then cut that and do the final connection
Yes.
after the wall is done?
Yeah, that's correct. That's what you'll wind up having to do.
Okay. All right, just to make sure of that, because we're using SharkBite technology. They have a new type of, it used to be Evo PEX, and now they switched to some Mexican manufactured brand called Coflex, but I mean, it's the same Evo PEX, just with Mexican label. So I need to check that because once you put it, you cannot take it out. So I need to cut the pipe. Okay, so after I continue. Thanks for the answer. I continue.
Yeah. And by the way, we are recording these. So if you do miss them, you can, where are these? Where would these be found? Leanne, do you know where he can find these recordings?
At the moment, I'm emailing them to anyone that requested via my email. I can send it to you.
All right.
Andres. I believe in the distant future, we're going to be putting those in the member portal.
Okay, that will be awesome. That will be awesome. Thank
But
you.
I can send them to you.
Perfect.
And then Sharon has a comment about that. May I read it?
Sure.
I have to get a little close here. Okay, Sharon said, I'm going to complete the interior finishing, including water delivery lines, because I want them inside the building envelope and visible to immediately detect leaks. So yes, I would like some kind of testing at this stage. I meant to say on the inside of the wall cladding, not inside the wall cavity.
Yeah, we run across that frequently with some builders. They prefer to run their water supply lines on the interior and then, have cabinets behind it or something like that. But that's not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Thanks for your comment, Sharon.
Our next topic is the dielectric test. Tony, I'll let you take a hold of this one?
All right, so the dielectric test, that seems to be throwing a lot of people off. One of the first things you have to know about it is that most of the time you're going to ask your electrician, if you have an electrician, if they can do a dielectric test for you. Most electricians have not either seen a dielectric test, let alone have a tester for it. Basically, it's a megohm tester that we use, or that's to be used. And what it's for is, what they're looking for is any weakness between your black wire with your power cable going to your outlets or switches or whatever, and ground. So they're looking for a weakness there. So the code says that we can put, we have to apply 900 volts for 1 second. We usually tell the builders that most of the meters will have 1,000 on them that they use. But anyway, a megohm meter can be pretty expensive to get. And we came up with at least 2 models that can be purchased for under $70. And they work well, they do good. And the instructions that comes with them is a little confusing. So I tell most of the builders, if you're not used to using it, or if your electrician doesn't know what to do with it, then, and we do have some instructions on our website, but I tell them just set up a consultation with us and we'll walk them through doing it. And once you do the first one, you realize how easy they are. It's pretty simple.
And the reason we do those tests, Tony?
Because
Well,
we're
it's-
required to.
we're required, but it's an
The
let
code
them know it-
specifically, the code specifically says that
Yeah.
at the house tested have a dielectric test done on it. So, and you don't, and why most electricians aren't familiar with this is because this isn't something that's used in everyday house wiring. It's not something that you use when you're building a house or anything like that. It's primarily for RVs, park models, manufactured homes, and I think modular homes are required to have it also done.
Is that a test that's required in 551 and 552, or is it a test that's in ANSI 119.5?
It's in 552 and 551. Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick on that, Tony, I just wanted to double check. The NEC reads that the test shall be performed between the ungrounded and the grounding conductor, basically for the park model RV, as well as the grounded conductor and the grounding conductor. So what the NEC basically says is a test between the hot and the equipment ground and the neutral and the equipment ground. Is that, have we not checked for the neutrals, or how have we treated that?
Yeah, most of the cases, we haven't really been checking for the neutrals, just on the ungrounded leg, which is the black leg.
Okay.
For everyone.
Okay. Because that was, when I read the code to the gentleman last night, I said, well, this is what the code says. I'm not sure if that's how we're checking this or not. So I guess might be something to look at there. Because that might be a little cumbersome, because they would have to remove each individual one from the neutral bar.
Oh, that would,
test, or could
yeah,
they
it
just
would,
test it to the neutral bar?
yeah, it would be, yeah, and I don't know. See, when I looked at it before, Chad, I've got one of those testers myself. And when I looked at it, I thought, well, you know, they would have to disconnect all their neutrals and do one at a time, which, as you just said, will be pretty cumbersome. Or if we just check from the neutral bar to the ground bar to see if there's any leakage. But if there is, it still is going to be a real problem with trying to locate it. So that's why in most cases we hadn't even really been bothering with that.
Okay.
Okay, the next, this was a Robin thing. So the pressure test on waste line and gas lines. Who wants to
I
take
think we
that?
already talked about the way, yeah, no, we didn't. We talked about the supply lines, but the question is, do we test and what are the pressures and how do we test for the waistline and the gas line?
You want me to take that? can
I don't
take it.
care, anybody.
All right, so as you know, the water line, we use, as far as the water supply line, we use a pressure test of 80 pounds. We need to see, and it needs to hold for at least 10 minutes. On the gas lines, we need to do something similar, but we only need 8 to 10 pounds of air pressure. And same thing, it should hold for approximately 10 minutes. On the wastewater side, the code calls for a 10-foot column water test. In other words, what you're supposed to do is go to your vent line, fill the vent line up, preferably up to the top so that we can actually see the water. But you'll have to do that at a stage where you can, before you would install like your shower or something like that, because you want to be able to plug those drains. So, and that one in particular, it's actually a couple of our builders were actually glad we did it because they found that their drain lines were leaking.
All right, how about, and I put this on here, the placement of gas bottles.
Well, the placement of gas bottles is,
Oh, wait a minute.
One.
Mr. Casanova has what's your first
Okay.
name? Has his hand
Andreas.
raised.
Andrew, Andres
Andrea.
in Spanish, but Andrew is just fine. Thanks, Robbie. Just a quick question. Are we able to use minivan, or are you familiar with minivan?
mini vents.
Yes.
Oh,
No, but I think, are you talking about what we call an air admittance valve
Yeah,
or
correct.
scooter?
Yeah.
Yeah, see there, that works. There are two different functions. One is the mini vent that you're talking about allows the air to go into the system and we're actually calling them anti-siphon devices.
Right.
It allows air to go into the system so that water isn't sucked out of one of the traps by running water in a different fixture. So that allows air to go into the system, but we have to establish a negative pressure on the system so as that if any sewer gas or anything from a septic system wants to push back, it has to have a negative place to go to instead of pushing through your traps. So
Right.
it would use that vent to go out instead of coming into your home.
Okay.
So the answer is you can have mini vents or Studer vents or air admittance valves on your fixtures, except you need at least 1.5 inch vent through the wall or through the roof. Is that correct?
Correct, right.
Perfect. So I will use that one to do the pressure test with the water column.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Next one was venting of hot water heaters.
Yeah, that was something I know Tony was talking about, how we do have that on our NOAA Plus, and that there are some gas on-demand hot water heaters that are strictly for the outside, and they're not designed for interior. And ones that are designed for the interior have to have some kind of venting in an enclosure. You want to talk about that? Anybody, Tony or Chad?
Yeah, because that's been a thorn in my side. Okay, so what we're seeing, and this is really important, what we're seeing is people are buying as you know, most things are made overseas right now. And so people are buying some of these hot water heaters and they're installing them in their bathroom. So what would be wrong with that? The code says you can do that. But here's the problem. The hot water heaters that are being advertised, especially on Amazon, that are being advertised are saying that they can be used inside your home, inside your bathroom, inside an RV, inside a boat, and so forth, which is completely not true. In other countries, maybe, but the ones we're seeing, first of the code says this, that your hot water heater that you install, any fuel-fired hot water heater cannot draw combustible air from the inside of the home. It cannot. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a tip-off is just look at the hot water heater itself and you'll see vents on the sides. If you see vents on the sides, then you know right away it can't be put indoors, even though it may have been advertised that it can be. So what you need to have is that ones that you do put indoor are what's called direct vent hot water heaters. They're hot water heaters designed to be inside, but they're drawing all combustible air from the outside. So you have to be really, because we've had to have a number of different builders at times, we've had to have them remove the hot water heater because it was not the correct hot water heater. We had to move it outside. So that could be a little costly. So that's something that you have to be very careful about and to be sure that that hot water heater is not designed to draw any air from the inside.
All right. Hey guys, I step off for a minute for an inspection. I'll be back then.
Okay, thanks, Rich.
Hi, Rich.
Let's see, the next one. Sheathing and underlayment before metal roof.
You don't want your
Can I,
top being depleted inside.
M-
You want to do
Matt, did you say, did you want to talk, Matt?
You also don't want you to exhaust your burned fuel gases inside the house and kill you.
Correct. Did you guys hear that?
I barely,
I
but
think he said, he
what I
did.
did hear, he's correct.
Yeah, I think he said you don't want the gas to be burning the oxygen out of the interior of the house.
Exactly. Right, exactly. And you know, that speaking of that though too, I looked on a couple of them and I looked on, kind of blew up the picture of the box and stuff. And it says using it in a ventilated area. And I thought, well, that's not really telling the people much of anything, just using a ventilated area. They
Open a
might
window.
consider- Yeah, I was gonna say, they might consider the bathroom a ventilated area.
Yeah,
So,
with a vent fan.
right.
On that sheathing thing, Sherry, can I share my screen? I've got a photo.
Absolutely. Let me. You should be, that would be a Jordan thing.
Okay. Tony, I think this is the one you sent me about the sheathing on the roof.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what about it?
Well, if everyone can see that picture well, they can actually see the underside of the metal roof itself. So there's a series of things wrong with this one, but as far as the sheathing goes, this house was put together with no sheathing on the roof itself, and then they laid the metal over top of it. So without the sheathing, you lose the strength of racking on the upper portion of the home. You lose the ability to put a ice and water shield or tar pit, whatever you would be required to use on there. And the other thing is the heat from that metal, and it can cause condensation. It can cause, if you use spray foam on it, it could cause that spray foam to become almost like powder where it touches it. So anyway, this particular builder, we told them that that was not acceptable, that they would have to remove that metal roof and install proper sheeting down on there.
And there was also a problem with the span on the 2x4 roof rafters.
Yeah, well, that's why I said there's a couple of things wrong with this one. So anyway, what they did was they ran 2x4 rafters. Instead of running them side to side, they ran them the length of the home. Or not 2x4, they were 2x6, I'm sorry. They ran 2x6 rafters 16 feet long, unsupported. And so the span itself is too long for a 2x6 to be unsupported. So they're going to have to rectify that also.
And ANSI 119.5, I think they require a 30 pound per square inch load on there, but most snow loads that I've talked to people are between 50 and 150. And
Right,
can go up to 250 in some parts of Colorado.
right. And and while we're talking about this in particular, the other thing is that we're getting a little argument on the use of ice and water shield, especially from the Florida builders. The code says that if you have a 412 or less roof, it's considered a low pitch roof. And a low pitch roof requires the very first row of whatever you're putting, but the very first row to be protected by ice and water shield. Once you get to a 212 or less pitch, then the code looks at that as a flat roof. And a flat roof, you're required to use ice and water shield on over the entire, or equivalent, over the entire roof. So the argument I get back is, well, we're in Florida, we don't get snow. So, but you're in Florida, you do get rain. And it says ice and water shield, not just ice. So we do get a little pushback on that, but it is required.
On any pitch that's a low pitch roof.
Right, right.
212 or less.
Well,
Okay.
doesn't our NOAA standard require it no matter what the roof is, what pitch the roof is? Just not the whole roof, right?
That I don't think, I don't know. I think we spelled it out in there, but
Yeah.
I am not sure.
I'm pretty sure it stated that no matter, I mean, we require it as part of NOAA plus.
You're right, Barry. So the way it is written is it's required on every roof, no matter the pitch. If it's 412, it's the entire roof. And if it's then 412, then it's just the first 3 feet. But I mean, realistically, if 3 feet of a tiny house roof is, a little over a third of it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you might, use up the rest of the roll that you have. Better to play safe than sorry at that point.
Yeah, because if it's a gable roof, you've got 3 feet on each side.
Right.
And there's not much more in the middle. If it's a shed roof, you only have, you got 3 feet at the total of probably 8 foot something. So 2 more laps of that. And unless it is pitched, some people are pitching them the lengthwise, where they're pitching them from front, the tongue to the back. And you may have a 20, 24 foot, like the one behind, well, I don't know if Andre Casanova, if his is pitched to the back, but it might be pitched to the back, and he's got his hand raised again too. So,
Well, the one we're looking at that's on the screen is pitched to the back.
yeah, okay, but it looks like it's lower than a 212 pitch, so that would be required to have all the way anyway. Yeah, and the other thing I want to point out on here, guys, is he used well, this might be a 10-foot wide. I can't tell. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is a 10-foot wide. So he used 2x6s, but he used 2x4s for the catwalk. If that's going to be people, crawling across there, why didn't he use 2x6s? That looks like it's longer than 8 feet.
Yeah.
So don't know, but if you guys are ever trying to build something like that, that's kind of stuff we look at. And I don't see a header on that back window back there. It might be, but it looks like it might just have a 2x4 over that window. So we look at those kinds of things, headers over your wheel wells, and all of that. So just structural wise, you guys know how to build, do it right, and then we won't have any problems with it. But he certainly could have saved himself a lot of headaches if he just turned those 2x6s around and ran on the 10-foot way instead of the 18-foot way.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay, let's see.
Andreas
you
has-
wanna-
Andreas has his hand up. Excuse me.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Just quick. So the first one is, so we are able to use solar heaters too. Are we able to install just for solar heaters, or we need to leave two options: the propane, or I mean the gas heater outside the unit, as if you see the picture here behind me here. After the how you call this, the louvers, after behind the louvers, here there is a gas heater, but we also are trying to use solar heater. Is any restriction? We need to go with both of them, or how that works, especially for Texas, which is going to be our first client.
So I'm going to chime in on this, and everybody else can chime in too, please. My thoughts on that are that we have to have some type of utility appliance, meaning electric, gas, propane, something along those lines. And then you can absolutely have the system set up for solar, or anything thermal like that, in addition to the gas, but definitely, and even in a bypass valve. So if somebody opts to just use the solar, then they can have that option, but at least to have the availability of.
Thanks a lot, Rich. And the second question will be about the structural and what you were saying. We have a insulated metal panel manufacture facility. So we are used to use the insulated metal panels for roofing. And we are able to have the wingspan and all the loads required for the loads in the code, and meet them with the insulated metal panel. It's not just a sheet, it's a panel, so it has a lot of inertia. It's possible to be used in not specifically in low pitch as the one that you're seeing right here. This one in particular, and that's the second question. I think Rich already told me that could be, but give you the same question to you because it's very important for our product. Are we able to use a commercial typical detail and use TPO membrane as roof for flat roofing, having all the loads taken care with cold form steel joist? Is that possible?
Oh yeah, I don't see any issue with that at all, as long as you can meet the loads that, like you just said, the loads that we discussed, with the 30-pound snow load, live load, the 10-pound dead load, and then the 130-mile-an-hour wind for the attachments. That shouldn't be an issue at all. Okay,
so for both, even TPO membrane or insulated metal panels?
Yeah, as long as you can provide documentation that supports it, in either respect, that's not a concern.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, the next one is house wrap needed in all cases. zips and zip panels?
No. I'll jump in on this one. So house wrap, if you're using standard uncoated plywood, OSB, some type of sheeting, then yes, you will need some type of water resistant barrier or house wrap. Water resistant barrier is the actual technical name. House wrap is just a brand. But if you use something like zip panels or something that has a factory coating on it that takes the place of the house wrap material, then no, you do not need additional house wrap, because the manufacturer's installation would have that spelled out for you from the product. But you do need to follow whatever their sealing guidelines are. So if you have to seal it up, like with zip, you use a zip tape, and then any penetrations from nails or screws or other fasteners, you'd have to seal them up as well. But other than that, anybody else have any input on that or thoughts?
Yeah, that was actually good. That's exactly right.
Okay. Metal studs, pros and cons.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Well, yeah, that's good. It's a good one. Well, I guess I could say this. The pros are you're going to save some weight.
Yeah.
From what I hear from the builders, the cons are that it takes a bit longer to put together than standard wood framing. And I guess there's a cost factor also.
And I'd like to weigh in on this too. The other pro is that metal studs are straight and 2x4s can be curved. And wood framing can have your crowns and all in it, or bends in it. But when we're talking about metal studs, we're not talking about the flimsy metal studs that you use for interior or tenant partitions. We're talking about cold form steel studs that are I don't know what the gauge would be on them, 20 gauge or 22 gauge, something like that, I believe. So you'd want to do that. What about thermal? Do you feel any way, one way or the other, about thermal bridging with metal studs as opposed to wood studs?
The thermodynamics of a metal stud, definitely they transfer significantly more or greater heat or cold unit. But is it that much of an effect on a tiny house? I don't know. I couldn't answer that. I think that would be a personal decision.
Well, this is what I heard from somebody that builds metal studs. A 2x4 is 1.5 inches wide. A metal stud is less than 1/16 of an inch, or something around 1/16 of an inch, between 1/16 and 1/8. So even though the R value, or whatever, resistance to heat or the thermal bridging, you are able to put insulation on both sides of that 1/16 of an inch metal stud. So he was arguing that it's actually better than a stud would be as far as the thermal bridging. So I don't know the answer to that, but that was the argument that I got one time.
Yeah, I think I've heard arguments on both sides of that.
Yeah, I could see both of it. I mean, I guess an actual test, that's been performed would be true validation.
Okay.
Anything else on that? Okay. Wash machine standpipe, 1.5 versus 2.
So I want to skip that one, and I want to have that one just with the inspectors.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
What was the other one you had?
That was finished. Did you do fenestration already?
No, that one. Yeah, fenestrations in stage 2, Rich.
Excuse me one
TJ.
second. TJ
Oh.
has his hand up.
Go ahead,
TJ?
take the question.
Go ahead, TJ. We can't hear you. Is your mic on? Can't hear you. Put your question in the chat if you can, TJ, and we'll get it answered. Or if you get the mic thing figured out. We definitely want to get your question answered, but we can't hear you right now. All right, let me share my screen again for the fenestration.
Good one. Not think about
Was
much.
What's that?
It's not one people think about very much.
Yeah. Anyway, we have this builder that wants to build this house here, and in it he has a kitchen window over the kitchen, and he has, I don't know whether you can see it in this one, can't see it in that, no windows on those two sides, and on that side there's a door, and the only window you can see in the loft as an egress window. Looking at it from down below, you can see the kitchen window right there and the loft window, and that is it. So what, and I don't know whether the door is going to be glass or not, but let's assume that it's not. What's the rules there, guys?
So you would have to provide 8% of the floor area as so you take the total area and multiply that by 8 and to see if your window size actually meets the standard.
8% of the floor. Do you count the loft?
I would, because that's well, that's a double-edged sword there. Boy, yeah, it's a legitimate.
You almost have to count the loft.
Yeah, you do, because yeah, you would definitely have to, because it's a habitable space.
And yeah, unless we call it the raised bunk bed, which we're trying to get through, but yeah. All right. So it's so the answer to the question is 8% of the floor area. And so you measure your floor area and see if your window area is 8% of that floor area. That's just a mathematical calculation. And then there's another, that's for light. What is it for air? For ventilation?
I think it has
I know the
5%,
answer.
right?
5 minutes.
It's 4%.
Yes,
I
for
think it's 4%.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
TJ messaged he can't get his video to connect, but he said Zip System has our sheathing for steel studs.
Yes, thank you. You do. Yep.
And when we talked about the house wrap, I think we did mention that the zip panels and taped properly and everything, you don't need to have your house wrap on those.
Right.
All right. And Andrea has his hand up.
Yes, thanks again. Yeah, one thing is, I think you didn't mention, but the combustible advantage to be a steel versus wood. So for this one in particular, I haven't made the question, but do we need to have a fireproofing resistant or fire resistant time for tiny houses? I don't know, 30 minutes, 1 hour?
So we wouldn't have a minute or hourly rating. It would just be off of the flammability of the products itself and the smoke ratings, which we can send you then. That's not a problem.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You get the 200 flame spread rating on the interior finish.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, does any of our builders have any questions that we didn't have topics with today? No,
Going
does any of our inspectors have topics that we did not put in today's topic?
I seen one on our list here about HEPFO valves.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody chooses or opts to install HEPA valves, they do have to be maintained accessible. So you couldn't install it under a shower unit and then put the metal pan liner or something like that under the trailer itself, because basically it would be locked in place with no ability to access it in the future, if it ever needs to be replaced and or serviced.
Unless
So-
you had an access panel underneath the trailer that you could get to it.
Yes, yeah. So definitely give some consideration to layout and like Robin said, access points or access panels. So you can, have free access to replace it or service it if ever needed.
And if you ever have to run a snake down it, you have to take the HEPA valve out before you snake the line, because the snake would damage the rubber or whatever it's made out of.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Tony?
You're muted, Tony. We see your lips moving, but we can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
Woo, that's a
I-
good thing sometimes.
Yeah, you got that right. My wife would agree, actually. Actually, she's looked for a mute button on me many a day. So for the builders that are not familiar with the HEPA valve, it is simply, or basically, it's a waterless valve. And what it does is it replaces the P-trap, so that you never have to worry about water evaporating from it and then gas is coming back, and you don't have to worry about freezing. But Rich is right. It does have to be accessible. It is guaranteed for 3 years, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to, you won't put something down there. Kids put something down and clog it up. No, but
If you use a HEPA valve and not a P-trap, do you have to have an air admittance valve?
at that, no, you don't, because there's no trap to be siphoned.
Mhm.
But you still don't, you still need to have a primary vent for your wastewater system. But under a sink, say in a kitchen, normally you're going to have a P-trap and you're going to have an air admittance valve. If you look, that takes up a whole lot of room. So one HEPA valve, which I think are like $29, replaces all of that.
Yeah, and don't forget they can also be installed vertically or horizontally.
Right.
So
And one of the big advantages to it is a lot of people have problems with the shower trap because of the shower being flat to the floor. So they're putting the trap underneath the house, and they have the fear of freezing, that trap freezing. Well, the HEPA valve could replace that trap and you wouldn't have to worry about freezing.
Chad, did you have anything you wanted to add? He must be
I
gone.
have one question on, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure how my connection was here, but I did have one question on, or somebody asked me as far as receiving a NOAA certification for, they're wanting to build a tiny home that's over 8.5 feet wide. Does when they were looking at the ANSI standards, are they limited to 320 square feet if they go beyond 8.5 feet wide?
400.
'Cause I did see that in
Yeah, it's 400. I was going to say
there, but I'm
400.
not sure. So they can still go up to 400 even if they exceed the 8.5 feet wide, correct?
Right.
Yes.
The only thing with, if it's bigger than 8.5 feet wide, Chad, they may have to check with DOT. They may need to get a special permit for moving it or have to have it professionally moved, depending on the DOT in their state.
Okay. There was a section in the ANSI standard that did talk about if it exceeded 8.5 feet in width, then I thought it said limited to 320 square feet to still be considered a park model RV. But I wasn't sure how that affected NOAA certification, if that's going to be an issue. So I'll let them know. But there'll be no
Up-
problem.
Up to 400, 399.99. They can do it. And yeah, I don't know why it says that. All right, well, guys, we have one more hand up. Ron has his hand up over here.
Yeah, I had a question a couple of days ago. I think it was mentioned that what makes a unit a home, and it was defined by whether it has a stove or cooking space or not. Is that correct?
I didn't catch that whole question. It broke up on my side.
Well, it's not
Yeah,
not
same here.
exactly that, Ron. It still has to, a home still has to have living, has to have sanitation like a bathroom and all of that. What that means, if you have if you have a stove, you're done. You can't add another stove into the unit. That makes it a duplex. In other words, the stove, you can only have one stove per dwelling. One and a cooktop, I don't know that would be a problem. It's more like a stove or range or something like that, microwave, because they told me I have 6 tiny houses around a center core, and in the 6 bedrooms, quote unquote, I could put a refrigerator, a microwave, a cooktop, but I could not have a stove in those. The only place the stove could be was in that common area where all 6 of the other houses, and in order to call it a 6-bedroom house. As soon as I add another stove somewhere, it's considered a duplex. Another stove makes it a triplex.
I see. Okay. Thank you. That clears that up. Yeah.
Question.
Hey, anybody else?
Well,
Or-
before we close off, Sherry, if you guys are getting stuff out of this? Put it in the chat. Tell us. Let us know. Give us feedback. It's good. It's not good. You know. I'm sure if you don't like it, you'll just pop off of it. But let us know. That we're doing a good thing here for you. So that'll encourage us and the inspectors and everybody to keep doing this, because it does take time and effort out of our day to come to you like this. And second of all, you can email Sherry if you have questions that you want to put on the Thursday nights.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to wait and let us come up with the questions. If you have questions about stuff, you don't want to do a consultation, you can wait until the next Thursday. Please send Sherry at noahcertified.org, and I'll shut up after that.
Or you can send it to info and it'll get to me as well. So info at NOAA or Sherry at NOAA, and we'll get you taken care of, and I won't have to beat my inspectors to get them here every Thursday.
Guys, I don't mean to chat and run, but I have an inspection right now that
You
I
have
to
an
do.
inspection. Thank you,
Right.
Tony.
All right.
Thanks,
guys,
Tony.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you,
Leanne, I'm
guys.
turning it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Sherry. Thanks to all our inspectors and everyone that tuned in. We're glad you guys joined us. We did get some comments. It's very informative. Everyone's enjoying it. I want to thank the inspectors for tuning in, Chad, Tony, and Rich, and all of the builders with your questions. I learn a lot on these nights. So, and also we're done for the week, and we'll see you on Monday. So tune in Monday and have yourself a great day tomorrow and a wonderful weekend. Thanks, everybody. We will see you soon. Thank you.